morning. I want to welcome you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ to this time of worship, whether you are joining us here or online, and pray that the Holy Spirit will lead us today as we open our hearts to God together. Today we begin with a gratitude moment. Gratitude moment is for our school partnership. Some of you may know we partner with Jackson Elementary School or Primary School in Batavia, Jackson. And we have volunteers that go, or we're in the process of getting volunteers to go in, but then we need something, this is like a gratitude, but also an invitation. So Sue, Chitty, and I are going on the 31st of October. What's happening on the 31st? Halloween, yes. Any of you get trick-or-treaters at your homes? Okay, do you like getting trick-or-treaters? Yeah. If you don't and you would like to help, this is your opportunity. There will be a lot of kids. And actually there are 3 schools they're inviting us to go to. So it's going to be Jackson, Robert Morris, and then John Kennedy's. So they're inviting us to help hand out, it's a community day, and so you stand there and the kids come up to you. You could be dressed as anything you want, but they have, you could be the rep from the church. So anyway, if you're interested, there are 3 time slots, and I forgot the exact times, but I think it starts at 9 to 10 at Jackson, and then 10 to 10:30 at Robert Morris, and then 11 o'clock at John Kennedy's. So it's just really fun. You see the kids wearing all their Halloween costumes. It's really, it's the best. So if you're looking, it's one of those ways that they invite us every year. They invite the fire department. They invite anyone from the community who invests in the well-being of children to come together and serve, and reminding the kids that the community cares. So, cares with candy. That's it. All right, so send me a note, let me know if you'd like to help with that. It's a great opportunity to help with a school partnership. Today we begin a new sermon series, and this is called Inflation. Not that you want to hear about that anymore, and the cycle of blessings, holy currencies. So this is based on a book called Holy Currencies by Eric Law, talking about looking at our wealth beyond what we always think of. When you think of wealth, what do you think of? Possessions and money. So you have things instead of currencies, like relationships. That's what we're focusing on today. So thinking of these currencies, the currencies of gracious leadership, relationships, truth, wellness. How many of us, when we are sick, wish we could be doing well? Think about that. We don't think about it until we're sick. We take it for granted that it is something so essential to the best term I've heard about this is your health is your wealth. Because it's really true. If you don't have that, what do you really have? It's very hard to enjoy or experience life when we're not feeling well. And then, of course, the currency of money, and then time and place. So thinking about it in a bigger way than what we tend to think of. This is stewardship season, so we tend to talk about money, but that's the whole point, is to talk about all of life, all the gifts of life. And I was thinking of inflation because right now it really promotes a sense of scarcity. Every time I turn on the news or read anything, something has to do with inflation, rising prices, shortages, things that we have and things that we don't have. So it's always telling us of the things that we need more of. So instead of living in the abundance of God's creation, we end up focusing on all the things we do not have, and think only when we have those we'll be happy, which is not true, because the invitation is to look at all the currencies of our lives right now, not just money, and to think about them as they impact our lives and how they flow. The important thing about this cycle, if you look at them, is that it goes one to the other to the other. So, and they flow. So think about it, even money. how good is it if you just have it in your pocket? It's really worthless. It could be a piece of tissue. What is it? It's only good because we exchange it. Think about it. It's because we let it flow. If it wasn't something that we used all the time, it would become useless. Have you had money from old times, maybe from a different country, and how valuable is it? It's just you remember going to that country, and maybe that country doesn't use that money anymore. That currency is not in use, but it's only when we use them. The same thing, our health, our time and places, all these currencies, they are valuable when we use them, when we share them with ourselves, but also with others. So that's kind of the point of this series, and today we're looking at relationships. Just a quick story from Eric Law. He talked about, he is Chinese American, and he grew up in a household where they had people over for dinner all the time, almost every night. Welcome, baby. We're very glad. We're very glad. MacArthur, is that what you're calling him? Or Archie. Archie is here. Archie is here for the first time. A special welcome to him. Yes. And to you. Yes. I know he was making himself known. I was going to wait a little bit, but now he wanted to be greeted right there and then. So the story is that he talked about those dinners, those family dinners. He grew up thinking they were very wealthy because they had people over for dinner all the time. And only later in life did he discover that they didn't have much to share. His mother would tell him that some nights she only had $3 to feed 12 to 15 people. And he wondered, how could she have done it? Is it because she was a thrifty shopper or a good cook and could make something go a long way? And he discovered later is that there were practices of sharing in the family. Or if there was some piece of meat that was left at the end of the dinner, no one would take it because they always felt like somebody else should take it. And then she would use it for the following day's meal. So it's always that cycle of blessings. So he learned a spirituality that assumed that there's enough, and therefore it is okay to have less than the other. So there was that sense. I know most people that if they grew up in a household that didn't have a lot of currency of money, but they didn't feel that sense of poverty because they felt that the family shared a lot, and they didn't realize that they were economically poor until much later in life. And then I've seen families that have had the opposite. They had resources a lot, but there was so much worry about money in their family, and there was a lot of fighting and a lot of discussion over money. So it just depends on how we view and how we use our resources. So I invite you today to prepare your heart for worship with me. I invite you to take a deep breath and be present for this moment. God, we give you thanks for this moment of grace, for this gathering of your people. We open our hearts to you. We open to the mystery of your presence, the flowing of your grace. Help us today as we open our hearts to be present, to let go of whatever is holding us back from receiving your grace, from accepting those gifts of love in our lives, and from sharing them generously. We pray for our world today in those places of deep pain and suffering. We pray for a spirit of sharing, of love, of care. Amen.
Good morning. Our first song today is called As For Me by the group Run Collective, so please stand and join us in song if you're able.
Thinking about the cycle of blessings and thinking about inflation. Inflation, of course, is when the currency of money is not as powerful as it used to. The purchasing power is diminished and the prices are rising, and we see it everywhere we go, whether it's getting groceries or trying to buy a new car or rent a place. It's impacting the world in many different places. And of course, the crisis has come for many reasons. There are different opinions. Of course, if you ask different people, they will give you a variety of reasons. But we've had a lot to deal with in the last 2 or 3 years when you think between war and pandemic and lots of different things that we had never really had to face, especially with the pandemic. So the inflation is always happening, and this is not to say there's never inflation. Now the problem is that it's gotten so bad, and I'm looking at someone with some money and tax background. Michelle, do you have any insights on what's going on in our world today? Yeah. Yes? No? No, you're good? Okay. What is it? Just write it out. Okay, write it out. So today, and so it depends on your background and your philosophy in life. There are different ways of dealing with it. But I believe today is a good opportunity. Even though it's a crisis, there's always, in every crisis, there is an opportunity for us to grow. But it is time to reflect on our relationship to all the resources of our lives. So especially to money and to wealth and to spending and consumption. And the problem, of course, I see with a lot of how say the politicians or the economists are dealing with this, it's always based on fear and a sense of, okay, the world is going to come to an end, the whole economy is going to crash, or you should be really so fearful. And the problem is that it doesn't really deal with the root causes of the problem. Oftentimes, it is about human greed. It is often about overconsumption. So thinking of this, think about overconsumption. How many politicians have you heard talk about, oh, we need to spend less. Maybe we need to drive less. Instead of driving just for whenever we feel like it. Oh, how many of us sometimes don't even think about it twice before going to dinner 40, 50 miles away? Sometimes people drive this much just because, you have your favorite restaurant and it happens to be in a different city. And I'm not putting you down if you do that, because I do that sometimes myself. So I know what we go through, but we have to make decisions and choices that really support a different way of life. And that's kind of looking at it from these perspectives that are not popular. So more of a spiritual issue for us than thinking of the inflation as just an economic problem. We contribute to the problem in our ways of life. And yes, people think, oh, well, it's just, if you think about us, especially in this country, how much we consume. We're not that much of the population of the world, but we consume a lot of its resources. If everyone consumed at the level that we do, the world would just never have enough of resources. There's no way if all people all over the world consumed as much as Americans do. So think about those things that we, on a spiritual level. And this is not a guilt kind of Sunday, by the way. This is not to make you feel horrible, but to make you think about what is important to you. Why are we always driven to consume more? What's in it for, of course, the economy? It's like, every time there's a crisis, the invitation is to go shop some more. Fix it with more stuff. Somehow you'll feel better. So we're looking at these currencies and looking at expanding our vision of our wealth. So to really value what we have. So what we pay attention to increases usually. So paying attention to what is valuable, and today thinking of the currency of relationships as a really, really important piece, because think about it, think of how your life would be so impoverished if you don't have all the relationships of your life. Just take a moment. Think of the people of your life. Even the people that aggravate you. Think about how your life would be without them. It's very hard to imagine a world where you don't have those connections, where we don't live, where there are people who care about us. It is a very poor life. There is a book called The Village Effect by Susan Pinker, and she is a psychologist who studied what what is important? How do people connect with each other, and why is it so important to us? She says that face-to-face contacts are essential for our wellness. So this is not just about, okay, it's nice to have relationships in our lives. It is essential for our well-being. For us, you see people who are isolated. It leads to a lot of health issues, especially people who feel very lonely. Sometimes isolation is not just about not having connections, but really deeper connections, meaningful connections. And she talks about our culture and the change, especially with our screens. And she says, in a very short time, we have changed from group living primates, skilled at reading each other's every gesture and intention, to a solitary species, each one of us preoccupied with our own screen. And we're very grateful. We were very grateful during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, when we were able to connect through Zoom or Facebook or whatever means we were able to connect without inflicting the disease on each other. But there's no, how did it feel the first time you saw people after the pandemic? You really saw people. I'm not, talking just from a distance. And I'm not taking for granted that now if I'm walking down the street and somebody is walking in the opposite direction, they don't try to run away from me. Like, yeah, we're making eye contact and we're talking, we're saying hello. I had an experience this past week. I was going for a walk and then dropped my sunglasses on the path. And so I saw this young man earlier, and then all of a sudden he was coming toward me. I'm like, okay, what is the problem here? And he goes, are these yours? I'm like, yes, thank you. Of course, I had this whole suspicion of why is he coming my direction? What does he want? Playing out all the scenario in my head. But it was a human connection of care. It was really interesting. He said, I saw you earlier, and so we ended up having a nice little chat about what he was doing on his, I don't know what's motorized hoverboard, something. And I'm like, who does that at Duet Park? But I didn't dare ask him. I wanted to, but I thought maybe he wouldn't appreciate telling me all the ins and outs of his life. But it's those connections that sometimes it doesn't have to be a long, big thing, but it's those human connections that we need. And it is so amazing that the pandemic has made it worse for us in terms of being isolated, not knowing how to be in social groups, and especially for young people. So she talks about this image of building your village, that it's so important for each of us to have a village of people that connect with us. So she has a TED Talk, and we're going to watch about 5 minutes of her TED Talk.
Here's an intriguing fact. In the developed world, everywhere, women live an average of 6 to 8 years longer than men do. 6 to 8 years longer. That's like a huge gap. In 2015, The Lancet published an article showing that men in rich countries are twice as likely to die as women are at any age. But there is one place in the world where men live as long as women. It's a remote mountainous zone, a blue zone, where super longevity is common to both sexes. This is the blue zone in Sardinia, an Italian island in the Mediterranean between Corsica and Tunisia, where there are 6 times as many centenarians as on the Italian mainland, less than 200 miles away. There are 10 times as many centenarians as there are in North America. It's the only place where men live as long as women. But why? My curiosity was piqued. I decided to research the science and the habits of the place. And I started with the genetic profile. I discovered, soon enough, that genes account for just 25% of their longevity. The other 75% is lifestyle. So what does it take to live to 100 or beyond? What are they doing right? What you're looking at is an aerial view of Villa Grande. It's a village at the epicenter of the Blue Zone where I went to investigate this. And as you can see, architectural beauty is not its main virtue. Density is. Tightly spaced houses, interwoven alleys and streets. It means that the villagers' lives constantly intersect. And as I walked through the village, I could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes watching me from behind doorways and curtains, from behind shutters. Because like all ancient villages, Villa Grande couldn't have survived without this structure, without its walls, without its cathedral, without its village square, because defense and social cohesion defined its design. Urban priorities changed as we moved towards the Industrial Revolution because infectious disease became the risk of the day. But what about now? Now, social isolation is the public health risk of our time. Now, a third of the population says they have 2 or fewer people to lean on. But let's go to Villa Grande now as a contrast to meet some centenarians. Meet Giuseppe Marino, he's 102, a supercentenarian and a lifelong resident of the village of Villa Grande. He was a gregarious man. He loved to recount stories such as how he lived like a bird from what he could find on the forest floor during not 1 but 2 world wars. How he and his wife, who also lived past 100, raised 6 children in a small, homey kitchen where I interviewed him. Here he is with his sons, Angelo and Domenico, both in their 70s and looking after their father, and who were, quite frankly, very suspicious of me and my daughter who came along with me on this research trip. Because the flip side of social cohesion is a wariness of strangers and outsiders. But Zio Giuseppe, he wasn't suspicious at all. He was a happy-go-lucky guy, very outgoing, with a positive outlook. And I wondered, so is that what it takes to live to be 100 or beyond, thinking positively? Actually, no. Meet Giovanni Corrias, he's 101, the grumpiest person I have ever met. And he put a lie to the notion that you have to be positive to live a long life. And there is evidence for this. When I asked him why he lived so long, he kind of looked at me under hooded eyelids and he growled, "Nobody has to know my secrets." But despite being a sourpuss, the niece who lived with him and looked after him called him Il Tesoro, my treasure. And she respected him and loved him. And she told me when I questioned this obvious loss of her freedom, "You just don't understand, do you? Looking after this man is a pleasure. It's a huge privilege for me. This is my heritage." And indeed, wherever I went to interview these centenarians, I found a kitchen party. Here's Giovanni with his 2 nieces, Maria above him and beside him his great niece, Sarah, who came when I was there to bring fresh fruits and vegetables. And I quickly discovered, by being there, that in the Blue Zone, as people age, and indeed across their lifespans, they're always surrounded by extended family, by friends, by neighbors, the priest, the barkeeper, the grocer. People are always there or dropping by. They are never left to live solitary lives.
All right. Any thoughts, reactions to this? Does this ring true? Yes.
Living in Manhattan, New York City for 10 years reminds me of this.
Yeah, the connections, people living close to each other.
Neighbors and apartments.
Right. Everybody knew everybody. Yeah. But now we have this also this fear of the stranger. Like I had this encounter at the park. I'm like, what does he want from me? Instead of thinking, oh, he wants to talk to me. Yes.
Just about thing, like, we were in Chautauqua recently.
Yes.
And that community is it feels very safe, although obviously we've
Yeah.
gone totally, but it feels very safe. And you tend to think positive thoughts about the other people.
Right.
All these strangers. So that's a perfect example.
That's a perfect example, Chautauqua, and the sense of community. They build every time, every summer. They have that sense of creating community. They have places where you could go bake bread. They have places where you could go worship. They have places where you could just go listen to music. Any opportunity to be with others, and a place where you learn. But it's always
The learning, meeting new people. And,
right, right. All the positives from that. Yes, Bill.
Friendship, tons of friendship. And
Friendship reduces stress, yes. It causes a lot of medical problems. You could be feeling really bad, and then when your friend comes, you start talking about it, somehow it just shifts things. Even though your problems didn't really go away or change, your perspective changed on it. It's because of those connections. And yet, we know it's hard. It's not easy. Being in community is not always easy. I love that, grumpy old man that was sitting there, looking at people with suspicion and what do you want from me? But it is those connections that really make a huge difference for us from a spiritual point of view as well. You can be a great Christian on your own. You can love and serve God in many ways, but it is really powerful when you connect with others. It's not just the same being by ourselves. There's nothing that replaces that face-to-face contact. We need that. It's built into how God created us. We may rebel against it, maybe try to do it differently, but it is who we are. It is part of our essence. We can work against it and run away from it, but it comes at a cost. And so looking today at the early Christians and the early followers of Jesus and how they really lived this wisdom, they believed that it was important to come together. It wasn't always easy for them to come together. And it was really a very interesting time, especially as the time went on. There was a lot of persecution. So some of them had to go meet in secret. Some of them even had to meet in catacombs. So because they believed it was so important to come together, they risked their lives just to be with others. And they knew it just couldn't work by themselves, staying alone. So today we're looking at the story, a little summary of their community life. And this is from Acts 2. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. So look at all the stuff they were doing together. They ate together, they learned together, they prayed together, they came together, and awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together, so you see every time it's reminding us in short verses, every time they're together, they're spending time together, they spent much time together in the temple. They broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. So it's telling us. Now, the book of Acts is full of also conflict. So there are conflicts in community. It doesn't always work out with you and your friends. Long-term friendships, they get tested. There are times when your friends will say something that really hurts you. They don't mean it, or sometimes they do, or they fail you, or your family, or your circle in the church, or the community. But without those contacts, these people knew they couldn't grow. They couldn't continue to live in the power of the Spirit. And it's interesting that a lot of those healings that happened with the people, they were because somebody touched somebody physically. And think of the time when we were during the height of the pandemic, where it's like, oh no, don't touch me. We became paranoid. And we're still living in that mindset. It's in the back of our minds. You go and you touch someone, and immediately you reach for what? A hand sanitizer, because you just touched people. And it's interesting, the fear that becomes a barrier for us from connecting with one another, one-on-one or face-to-face, where you gather with people. So today, looking at this example of the early church and knowing that it is so important for us to gather, to be together, to have connections, to be intentional, to put ourselves out there too. Part of the problem a lot of times now is that you can live your life so easily isolated. You don't have to go to the grocery store, do you? don't have to. You could just do it where it gets delivered to your house. You don't even have to talk to the person who delivers it to you. You just tell them to leave it out there. So think about that big shift for us. You don't have to go to church. You could watch church online. And that's okay when you're not feeling well or you're tired or you're away. But then, do you know who is there with you? Not always, not very easily. You could have a meeting on Zoom. I recently had that experience. All the presbytery meetings now are on Zoom. So a new pastor in Rochester wanted to gather the female pastors in the presbytery. So these are women I've seen online but really didn't know them. So we gathered, and as they walked into the restaurant, one by one, I'm like, who are these people? I couldn't really place them. There was one person I recognized out of a group of 10. It was very interesting that when we sat and talked and shared, I was like, wow, these are really amazing people. And I had no idea in the last 2 years that there are other people that existed in the presbytery. It's just, there is an isolating factor to those experiences. Yeah, it's very convenient. I love that the presbytery meetings are online now because I don't have to drive, especially at night. It was really convenient in January not to have to drive to Rochester, but it comes at a price, at a high price for us. Those contacts, those relationships are hard when you go on a trip with people. Have any of you traveled together with a group of people? Most of us have had that experience. There are lots of aggravating things that happen, by the way, with that. Because, you get to know how someone is always late, or they always leave messes behind. Oh, what is that? We're not your parents. You're not a baby. We're not taking care of you here. But think of the friendships that are just so strong after those trips. You never feel the same way about the people because you know them so well. You have spent time with them. Or if you've had dinner with someone, it's not the same, again, or lunch, or anything where there's sharing, that depth of the flow of relationships. So today we're going to reflect on this piece. If this cycle of blessing, if this piece of relationships is so valuable to our lives, how are we cultivating this currency? And how are we using the model of the early church to look at community at a time when individualism is reigning supreme, in a culture where we're encouraged to have our own screens so we don't have to share with somebody else? Because if you share, what if they like to watch something else that you don't like? So you see people sit, heaven forbid, we share a movie that one person doesn't always appreciate. Then you isolate, and it's always about your needs, but then you don't get to experience something together with the other. So when you think of the inflation, it has impacted our sense of community, or the pandemic, or whatever. But then there is this invitation to community. And it's funny, the timing of this, because next Sunday, I know it's during the Bills game. Oh my goodness. What time is the Bills game, by the way? 4:30? Oh, we're committing a major crime here by scheduling something. But we'll have a screen. I promise we'll have a screen of the Bills game playing in the background. But our youth decided that they would like to hold a community dinner. And again, there's no big agenda, just to gather people to have fun, to serve and to love others. And so I want to invite you to share and come and invite others. And here's a little invitation from Paul.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Janiszewski, and on behalf of the Youth Presbyterian Church Youth Group, I would like to cordially invite you to Oktoberfest. This is a lasagna dinner that we are having at, of course, First Presbyterian Church, October 16th from 5 to 7. Vegetarian and gluten-free options provided. The food shall be cooked here in the church. We will also have an assortment of games and activities for both youth and adults alike to enjoy. So I would like you all to come, please. I can't wait to see you. Have a nice day.
All right, so Paul issued the invitation again to come and join others and put ourselves in community, and that sense of play or sharing of food. I can't wait to see the kids cooking lasagna. I had a vision in my head of, okay, if something goes wrong, we're going to BJ's, buying lasagna, and putting it in the oven, because I have no idea how to make lasagna. I have no way of knowing. I know Michelle probably says, oh, it's so easy, but lasagna, even frozen lasagna, always scares me. So there's going to be that sharing too, that the young people, and it's interesting because we're joined by the kids from the Corfu Presbyterian Church, which will be fun. Again, building community as we're making the food, as we're serving it, and also the people who will come and join us. So take this, and I want to challenge you this week to invite 2 people. Again, especially if they're not football fans and they have committed to a big party and all of that, but bring them, and you don't have to stay for a long time either. You could come and eat. I think halftime will be probably by around 5:30. You can come, get some food, and get out. Sometime. 6 o'clock? Okay, 6 o'clock. Come and get some food and enjoy yourself, but invite people. So the idea is to really think, who are 2 people in my life that are really important to me that I can invite, and who are maybe 2 people that need community, or I'd like to know them a little better, that I can invite. And so today I want us to spend a few moments thinking of this piece, because one of our core values as a congregation is, this is the number 1, generous, caring, and loving relationships. This is really a core of who we are. And to know that the need is so great in the world. This sense of loneliness, if this is from an insurance company who says that it is 61% of people they interviewed reported feeling lonely. And young people, it goes even higher, 79%, this sense of isolation. So when you and it's interesting that they published these results in January of 2020. And what did we do? 2 months later, we're not going to see each other. Even made it worse. So I'm going to invite us to take a couple minutes to share with each other. Turn to a neighbor, talk to them about anything that's stirring within you about this, whether it's about the people you're going to invite, or anything of your sense of the currency of relationships.
Somebody else see a video, like the flyover. I saw this flying over Chihuahua. So somebody else was work at the airport. Yep, it's gonna be 1438 jets out of Missouri. And then somebody else posted pictures of the planes on the ground.
going. All right. I know we could keep talking for a while. Is anyone wanting to share any insights or things they? Yes.
Be surprised that the younger one, that percentage jumped.
The younger ones, the percentage jumped. That's a very surprising thing, isn't it?
The older adults,
Because you think older adults, but think, why? Why could that be?
why the younger?
Digital, yes. Are we digital natives? No. Yes. They haven't established themselves, yes? Right. Right, and it's so much harder nowadays for young people to make connections. There are so many social factors and social skills and issues that come with it because people are judging each other and there's bullying and there's it's like why are people being so mean to each other?
Yeah, it's a lot, just, what Lauren was saying, young people don't have the skills, they judge themselves as not fitting in.
They judge themselves as not fitting in. And because of the media is telling us your perfect image needs to look this way. Well, none of us fit. Right. You could be in a crowd of people and feel very lonely. So community is not guaranteed. I loved in the video when she talked about the niece that called him my treasure. Think about that. I mean, who could look at you and think you're their treasure and you're so important to them, or someone in your life that you think of that way, not just because of romantic love, but really deep connections, and it's very hard. Yes, Bill. Right. Well, it's probably the I would say it's the extended family more the issue, I think, because now, I don't know about you, but growing up for me, there were so many relatives in the picture. I was not parented just by my mom and dad. It was so many people, and that's part of the issue right now, is that even when you had a divorce in the family or a death or somebody that, where the nuclear family is not that big, you still had extended family to lead. There were aunts, uncles, people that came, even people in the neighborhood felt like family too. And there's that sense. And I'm not saying it was all the good old days, because the good old days were not always good. I know, I'm very aware community could have been very exclusive too and very rigid about who we are. So in order to be your individual self, we've gone to the other side, to being too much into the individual sense without really building that sense of family, of connection. So think about this and pray about the gift of relationships in your life. And if you don't have as many relationships, maybe think about how you could build more relationships. Not forcing yourself, but really leaning into some community aspects of life. And so we're gonna watch a video to close us, and it's all about love. Love is what matters at the end. That's what relationships are all about.
In the end, it is love that matters. All else will pass away. We need a thoughtful love, a wisdom that sees and knows more deeply, a faith that trusts in the power of God who lives beneath our wings. Ours is the age of something radically new. It is more than a reformation. It is an evolution in love. It is not simply we humans who are in evolution, but God seeks to evolve, to become more being in love, more conscious, more God at the heart of the universe. This is the truth that sets us free, the light that eludes our sight. We are the privileged bearers of transcendence. God cannot do for us what we must do for ourselves. Empty our lives of the inner clutter and noise so that we may welcome God within. Only when we allow God to be God for us can God save us. Because divine love can do no other than make whole. God's love is unmanageable and unruly. It is creative, spontaneous, and novel. It slips in between our controlling urges and dwells in the unbearable wholeness of our being. What a cunning God this is, who hides in lepers and appears in a poor man carpenter turned preacher. Divine love is beyond what the human mind can imagine or invent. It is not logical or predictable. It has empowered life from the beginning and promises to stay forever because love is ever new, ever more whole, deepening the rich creativity of life's playfulness. We all have a part in this unfolding love. We are all wholes within wholes, persons within persons, religions within religions. We are one body, and we seek one mind and heart, more personal and unified in love. This urging toward oneness is an invitation to evolve the divine. We must unfold the past into the quantum moment and let us aim toward the future. For up ahead is the Christ, rising from the dead in the darkness of night, to become for us the God of the future.
Amen.
Our last song is Next to Me by Imagine Dragons. Please stand and join us if you're able.
Something about the way that you walked into my living room, casually and confident, looking at the mess I am, but still you want me. Stress signs and cigarettes, politics and deficits, late bills and overages, screaming and hollering, but still you want me.
the blessing. This is kind of a doxology, a prayer of thanksgiving, turned into a blessing from Eric Law. May you go to praise God, from whom all blessings flow, circling through the earth so that all may grow, vanquishing fear so all may give, widening grace so all may live. Amen. Coming to read the faith.
Okay. I think Ben's gonna have Val or Cameron or Melzy fill in on the 16th.